Okie doke. Hey. Hi. Hello. It is 6:50 a.m. December 6th, Monday, 2021. I look about how I feel, which is to say, little sick, little under the weather. That's not important. Let's take a look at this. Coyote and Crow is an upcoming or just published tabletop role-playing game I've been excited about for a long time. Coyote and Crow describes itself as a science fiction and fantasy tabletop RPG set in the near future where the Americas were never colonized. Created by a team of natives. I'm hearing something loose in my left ear and it's fucking with me. I was talking about this on a day Saturday into Sunday. I'm talking about being excited checking this out. The art style is it's good. I like it. My vocabulary's shit right now. Yeah, like not cozy, that's not the word I'd use, but created, written, developed by Connor Alexander, the Cherokee Nation, additional writing and development by William McKay, Manitoba Métis Federation, Coyote Old Bear of the Numunu, and Derek Pounds of the Samish. Additional writing by Nico Albert, the Cherokee Nation, Raina Elliott, the Cherokee, Diogo Nukiera, William Thompson, Cherokee Nation, layout and graphic design by John Simon, editing by M. Matson of the Salt Ste, Marie Ojibwe, Chahi language developer. Oh, okay, so do you have a... I'm curious what the language looks like. I'm very curious. By William McKay. Maps by Janice Sheen. Coyote and Crow logo design by Barbara Schelling of the Assiniboine. Sensitivity counseling by Spider B. Perry. That's a sweet first name. Additional rules development by Jade Wesley. Art, Tate Allen, Choctaw, Giles Curtis, Whitefish Lake First Nation, Phil Cohen, Dale DeForest, Dedine, Julian Dolan of the Métis/Cree, Satacones, oh man, what a name, Esquivel? Oh, I'm gonna fuck that up. Kenyan Kahika? Ah, god. It's 90%. I can't fucking read. I was cutting onions for a soup that's on the stove right now, so my eyes are a little watery. Kanyan Kihaka, Mexican indigenous. It's funny. Okay, / Mexican indigenous. That's not like a parenthetical. Emma Flowers, Crow, Elijah Forbes of the Waganakising Ottawak, Al Harris of the Lumbee, Amelia Hutt, Keith Jim. Okay, so Navajo and Dine are being used differently here. They're related. That's why Navajo people often call themselves Dine or Dineta, D-E-N-E, and D-I-N-E is Canada, Alaska, Pacific Northwest. Pacific Northwest Canada, not really United States. And they are lingually and historically related groups. They will call themselves the people, using slightly different sounding versions of the people. That's very cool. Scott Kimberly, Jennifer Lang, Mackenzie Neal, the Cowpon Nation, Brian Roanhorse, Navajo, Heather Snell, Lakota Dakota, Jesse Thompson, Wolf Tomoy Aketu, Comanche Apache, Charles Udding, Jeffrey Farege, I have never heard of this, Sequalam, Cameron White, the Chata, Salagi, Matthew Willetto, Navajo, Lawrence William Paiute, Nala J. Wu. I'm making a point of reading all these out because normally I just skip through these, but it takes a lot of people to make something like this happen. It takes a lot of people. But I'm very excited to check this out. The alphabet, or not alphabet, but like stylization they've done here, I fucking love. I have a couple of maps from the setting of North America, and I'm sure it'll be North and Central America, and I'm sure it'll be in the book at some point. But I love this. So we got Maya's lesson, which I have no idea what that is, message to players, introduction to role-playing. I think I can skim over. I'm gonna skim through a lot of this, because it's several hundred pages, a few hundred pages. Damn, alright. Like I said, I'm under the weather, and my voice is kind of giving out, but I know I'll process this better if I talk through it, so I'm really just doing this for me. Thanks for hanging out, but sick boy hours. Waya knelt in the shrubs, holding as still as she could. She practiced her slow, quiet breathing the way her dadu had taught her. Her dark brown eyes were locked on the doe not 20 yards from her. Hidden birds chirped nearby. A light breeze rustled tree tops far above. A frog splashed in the pond that Waya's prize was drinking from. The doe turned its head slightly to watch the frog hop away. Letting a long, easy breath seep from her mouth, Waya moved her hand down smoothly to her calf to activate her boots. They were form-fitting, covered in light brown scales like a symmetrical waterfall of tiny leaves falling from her knee. An almost imperceptible hum brushed her ears as they powered up. Just one touch, she thought. One touch of the doe's tail before the Adanati? This was her last chance. How many times had she waited in this glade? How many times had she tried and failed? Well, no more. She'd been practicing with the boots for weeks. This time, she would feel that doe's tail, and no one could say that she only managed it because of the Adanati. With the frog's distraction fading, the animal returned to drinking at the pond. Waya made her move. She sprung from the bushes, sprinted in an arc around the pond. The boots hummed as they powered her strides, altering her weight, adding force to her every step. They had limited power, though, and Waya knew that she had to close the distance between her and her quarry quickly. Pumping her legs, she flew around the water's edge, mud and leaves flying from beneath her feet. The doe's head popped up. For a split second, their eyes met. It turned and ran. It sprang over a blackberry bramble and accelerated out of the glade. Waya zigzagged between two rocks and vaulted over moss-covered logs. She was moving faster than she ever had, and the doe was in reach. Waya's heart pounded. This was it. She leaped, hand outstretched, and grabbed nothing but air. As the doe darted to the left at the last moment, hopping over a small earthen crevice that fed a trickle of water into the pond. Waya stumbled and slid into the dirt. The hum from her boots faded, their power expended. The animal pushed through the thicket and disappeared. Exasperated, Waya stood and dusted herself off. She began the long walk back through the glade and home, holding back a stream of tears that threatened her cheeks. She was so despondent, her head held so low, that she almost didn't see her dadu sitting on the porch until she was almost to him. Your eyes have pointed to the earth since I saw you on the horizon. I take it you didn't touch it. Waya shrugged, unwilling to actually admit to her defeat. Not even with the boots, huh? He invited her to sit. She plopped herself next to the old man, her elbows on her knees, her face in her hands. She felt older than 13. A moment of silence passed between them, and Waya considered getting up and going to bed early. The sun still sinking down behind the trees she just left a moment behind. I think you need one more story, the old man said firmly as he watched the orange glow on the horizon. The soft lights of Cahokia would be flickering to life in the south soon. Behind the house, the gentle murmur of the river helped cool Waya's riled emotions. She didn't answer him, but she didn't get up either. Waya's Daru reached out and stroked her hair. One last chance for me to tell you a story. After tomorrow, you'll be among the storytellers. He paused a moment, but Waya didn't move. I think I'll pick the story, he said. I think I'm going to tell you about the coyote and the crow. Now Waya did look up. I've heard that one already, Daru. She hated the whine in her own voice. The old man grinned, not for years, and I think it's a good time for it. Waya didn't have the energy to argue. Instead, she crossed her arms over her knees, put her forehead down. Okay, she mumbled. He leaned back on the porch, putting the palms of his hands on the wood warm behind him. Looking at the sky fading slowly from blue to black, he said, In the days before your grandfather's grandfather's grandfather, Crow flew home to her nest on a night much like tonight. Crow was done for the day and about to settle into her nest when she felt the warmth of the Great Spirit approaching from above. The Great Spirit's gentle voice came to Crow and told Crow that the jet black bird had been chosen for a very important mission because of her speedy flight and keen intellect. In a hollowed-out log below, the Great Spirit's voice woke Coyote, where he had been sleeping. He stretched, yawned, and listened to the conversation above, knowing he hadn't been seen. The Great Spirit told Crow that very soon a long darkness was coming, and the world would be changed for generations to come. There would be starvation, war, and disease. Many animals would disappear from the world altogether. Ice and snow would pile up. Prayers of the suffering would go unanswered. Crow cried with this news, but the Great Spirit did not comfort her. Instead, she told Crow that worst of all, she, the Great Spirit, would be leaving the earth. All the animals, plants, and people would be left to fend for themselves. Coyote sobbed silently in his log as Crow begged the Great Spirit not to leave. The Great Spirit told the Crow not to despair. One day she would return. Crow lamented that without the Great Spirit they would all perish. In his log, Coyote nodded silently in agreement. But the Great Spirit told her that this is where the Crow's mission would come in. The Great Spirit was going to present a series of gifts, powerful gifts, to the people of the world that would help them survive until she returned. She needed Crow's help in delivering these gifts. The Great Spirit asked Crow to fly to all the tribal elders, to tell them to prepare for what was to come. She gave Crow a large cloth sack filled with gifts, telling Crow to spread them to every tribe. She told Crow to be strong and watch over the other animals. Then the Great Spirit sailed off into the sky, leaving a bright purple trail in the early evening above that was visible to all the people of the world. Crow took her job very seriously, decided that she needed to examine the gifts to best understand how to distribute them. She found a wide branch, and opening up the large bag, spreading out the contents, she wondered at the gifts. The Great Spirit had left humanity. Oh, the gifts that the Great Spirit had left humanity. The capital T in the Great Spirit made me autofill in my brain a period here. It was an array of seeds. Brightest among them were purple seeds, glowing like the trail she had left across the heavens. Before she could decide on a plan, though, Coyote emerged from his hiding place and said, I've heard what the Great Spirit told you about the fate of the world. I'd like to help you. Time is short, and together, we can spread her gifts faster. Crow knew that she couldn't always trust Coyote, and that sometimes he had his own agenda. But Crow also knew that she had very little time, and that Coyote was almost as quick as she was. Coyote, we must go to each of the tribes and tell them of this disaster, and of the Great Spirit's departure. We must give them each one of these gifts to help them survive the difficult times ahead. Coyote was eager for a look at the gifts, at what power the Great Spirit was bestowing, come on Alex, upon the humans. What could they be? Crow up on her branch said, "Wait a moment, and I'll separate them into smaller piles, and make smaller bags, one for each tribe. Then we'll divide the bags up. We'll meet back here when we've delivered them all." Coyote agreed. Crow tore apart the bag, laid the seeds out across the branches, and began forming a small pile for each tribe. Then, taking the scraps from the bag, she wrapped the seeds up and tied them with bits of string from her nest. Down below, Coyote waited eagerly. When Crow was done, she brought all of the gift bags down and placed them in a pile. "Take half, and travel quickly. Tell the people what's coming. Tell them that the Great Spirit is gone, but will return, and until then, to use these gifts and survive." Coyote said, "You can trust I will accomplish my mission, friend Crow." Crow felt satisfied with their arrangements and flew north with her gifts and the Great Spirit's dark message. Coyote ran off to the south for a bit, but soon stopped, put the packages of gifts on the ground, and decided he wanted to see what was inside. Opening one sack, he was slightly disappointed to see only seeds, but he knew they must be powerful seeds. He looked in another sack, and not only did it have seeds, but it contained exactly the same seeds as the previous bag. Opening them all, he was not surprised to see that each bag was identical. Coyote thought that this was boring, and with a glimmer in his eye, he decided to add some mischief to the solemn task. He took all of the seeds and sorted them by type, making piles. He began refilling the bags with all of one color, separating these new bags into piles of the same type and assign them to a direction. All the tribes of the southwest of me will get these seeds. All the tribes of the southeast of me shall get these seeds, and so forth. And so it was that Coyote delivered his bags of seeds and the Great Spirit's news across the land. Sometimes he appeared to the people as Coyote. Other times he arrived dressed as Crow just to have fun. Other times he'd show up as Rabbit or Hawk, and it was always amusing. Finally, when the work was done, he returned to Crow's nest to meet up with his friend, but Crow didn't return that night. This delighted Coyote at first. "I'm smarter and faster than Crow." But Crow didn't return the next night either. This began to anger Coyote and finally worry him. Where could my friend have gone? At last, Crow returned on the third day and Coyote was relieved. "Where have you been, my friend? What took you so long?" Crow cocked her head and smiled. "You must be faster than me, Coyote. Or perhaps you took smarter routes. But at least our task is done. We've delivered each of the seeds to each of the tribes, as the Great Spirit asked." Coyote looked thoughtfully and said, "Well, that's not entirely true, is it?" Crow cocked her head, but said nothing. Coyote grinned, a mouthful of teeth. "As I heard it, the Great Spirit gave no instructions at all on how to hand out the gifts. It was you that ordained that each tribe should get one of the seeds." Crow peered down suspiciously at Coyote. "What have you done, Coyote?" "I made things a little more of a challenge, that's all. I took all the seeds of a type and took them all off in one direction. All the people still got the message, and they still got the gifts. They just didn't get the same gift. I think it'll be much more interesting this way." Coyote waited for Crow to rage and berate him, maybe even try to peck him. But Crow just sighed and looked out onto the sky. Coyote's eyes narrowed. Then it dawned on him. "You knew I would do this, didn't you?" Crow looked at Coyote with one eye, and then the other. "Not specifically, but I knew you couldn't resist playing a game, even in this bleak hour." He grew more suspicious. Coyote said, "What actually took you so long? Why were you gone so many days longer than I was?" Crow looked at Coyote with something that Coyote thought might be pity, and it angered him. Crow sounded tired when she spoke. "I left the greatest gift out of all the bags that I gave you. a shining, glittering purple seed. I did not trust you to deliver it fairly, and it seems I was right to do so. Coyote's expression turned to shock. But if you gave it to only half the tribes, won't the people war over this great gift? Crow nodded. They would, which is why instead of giving it to any tribe, I spent the days seeding the seeds high into the clouds over all the lands. Every tribe will have this gift, whatever it is. It may just take some time to rain down and sprout. Now it was Coyote's turn to expect Crow's turn to expect Coyote's anger. She waited for his rebuke. Instead, Coyote laughed and howled, "Well done, Crow. You tricked me. It's just no easy feat. Let us sit back, watch the world unravel, and see what the people do with their new gifts." The old man went quiet. Finally, Waya said, "The seeds weren't really plants, but wisdom, and knowledge, and technology." Dadu nodded. "And the purple seed was the Adenati. But Dadu, if Coyote thought giving purple seeds to half the tribes would start wars, why did he divide up the other seeds the way he did? Wouldn't that start wars too?" "Maybe. Maybe not. Some say Coyote wanted us to fight each other for the power of the gifts. Others say that Coyote knew that if you do not have something your neighbor does, and they have something that you do not, then it becomes an opportunity to prosper and become friends. That through trade and cooperation, we all have a better chance of survival." Waya, do you now see why the story of Coyote and Crow relates to you touching the deer? Waya thought hard. I have to know the difference between being smart and being wise. Dadu shrugged. Sure, but it also helps to have a backup plan. I love that they took so much time to tell this story. This is a pretty common thing when you're trying to tell people about your world, about your tabletop role-playing game or your setting, is have like a foreword that gets into it. Like one that immediately comes to mind for me is, let's pull this up. No, not things. Games. There we go. Tabletop, science fiction, space, 40k. Give me Dark Heresy. I don't care. Just. I think this will work. Think this will have it. Let's look at this PDF. Huh. No, does this not have it? Hold up. Yeah. This is what I'm talking about. This sort of thing. Like, this is for Dark Heresy 2nd edition. This classic, in the far future, there is only war. In the 41st millennium, there's only war bit. Talking about, like, using language and imagery to convey, I gotta blow my nose, convey the feeling and spirit of the setting. Now, I'm not indigenous, so this isn't to me. If you have indigenous heritage from the Americas, we invite you to add personal knowledge and cultural traditions to your character into this game any way that you and your fellow players feel fit. Feel free to encourage and include an elaborate, oh god, I can't read, an alternate history of your tribe or nation into this world. Make it part of the game in any way that's enjoyable. Or don't. Nothing say your character has to be from your tribe. That's entirely up to you. Feel free to change the rules too. While we call out situations where you might want to include your traditions and heritage in the mechanics, certainly won't catch them all. Have a better name for something in your language? Call that. Have a more fun definition for a skill that fits with your tribe's history than what we have here? Speak up with the story guide and change it up. Alright, so this is the first time the a player role is named story guide. I'm assuming it's a dungeon mastery role, but I don't know. I like that it's called the story guide and not the game master or dungeon master. I like that master isn't a part of it, and I like that story is part of it. Really, I think this is a much more appropriate name. Honestly, this is a much better name than that role is traditionally given in a lot of other RPGs. I really like that. That said, keep in mind the intention of the game is not simply to take reality of the lived world, transpose into a future fictional world. This is the work of alternate history fiction. In the world of Coyote and Crow, the last 700 years of real-world history never happened. We encourage you not to overlay your tribe's recent past onto this different future, but instead think in terms of what could be, of what might have been. We'll supply plenty of ideas and suggestions, but it'll be totally up to you how much or how little of your tribe or nation you want to bring into this game with you. Additionally, you may be in a situation where you're playing with non-native players. We'll have specific instructions for them on how to be respectful and keep the game fun for all. For the most part, you can just direct them to play off the page. That is, if it's not in this book, if it's in this book, they can do it. If it's not, and it's something they want to do that may be drifting into insensitive or inappropriate territory, you'll have to decide whether that's something you'll want to stop play over to discuss. To avoid this potential disruption, we suggest discussing these possibilities in your first session. Yeah, session zeros are super important. These discussions and conversations are incredibly important to healthy games. If you're native and a story guide, you'll be able to more easily navigate these situations, as you'll be leading the game and helping set tone and scenarios. Nevertheless, it's best to make sure everyone is aware of boundaries before play begins. This is especially true if you're going to play games at a convention with strangers. Do not ever feel that you have to educate non-native players at the table. It's their responsibility to play respectfully within the rules or to learn more outside of their time spent at the game table. Yes, yes, yes. I love that that's first, rather than this message to non-native players, because I'm not the target audience. And that's super important. White people are not centered here. Non-native players are not centered here. And we shouldn't be. And I fucking love that. I'm gonna go check on that too. Oh, because I'm getting sick, I can't smell it that well, so I just added more garlic and salt to it because it's hard to go wrong with that. A message to non-native American players. If you do not have heritage indigenous to the Americas, we ask that you do not incorporate any of your knowledge or ideas of real-world Native Americans into this game. Not only may this be culturally insensitive, but many of the assumptions you might make would not fit into this timeline. Instead, delve into the details of the world you're given without trying to rewrite history or impose your perspective. Please specifically avoid the following: assigning your character the heritage of a real-world tribe or First Nation, assigning your character a two-spirit identity, using any words taken from indigenous languages that aren't used as proper nouns in the game materials or listed as part of Chahi, speaking or acting in any fashion that mimics what almost certainly negative stereotypes of Native Americans. In the real world, Indians, First Nations peoples, Indigenous, and others are often used semi-interchangeably. Please keep in mind, though, in this alternate world, none of these words exist or would ever be used. The aforementioned labels are all products of colonialism, and in this game, colonization never happened. Instead, people refer to themselves by given or chosen names, their tribes, cities that they live in, and to some degree, the nations of which they're citizens. If you're playing with other players who are native, do not be afraid to ask respectful questions about their own tribal identities in relation to things that are happening in the game. We suggest you ask those questions away from the game table. Some people are happy to share their stories or their culture, but for many it can be emotional work and deeply personal when often they're just there to have play a game and have fun. Yeah, totally. Please remember that Native American is a very loose term, and indigenous peoples are an incredibly diverse group. You wouldn't expect someone from Belgium to know about Irish history. Much the same applies here. Just because you have a native player in your playgroup does not make them your go-to expert or the person to get permission from. However, don't be afraid to play this game. The world in this book is rich and diverse, full of science and spirituality. The people of this world do all the same things you do. They love, work, aspire, struggle, hurt, heal, fail, and triumph. Play your characters as people, not natives, and you'll be fine. Note to all players, throughout this book you'll see commonly used words capitalized. For example, abilities. Anytime you see a word capitalized in this context, it means a word has specific game meaning. Ah, smart! And can be used in the game, can be found in game terms and glossary at the end of the book. Additionally, anytime you see a word you aren't familiar with, it's likely a Chahi word. This is a fictional trade language we've created for everyone to use and will help you feel more immersed in the language or world of Coyote and Crow. For more on this language, oh god, I'm so excited. See the chapter, Languages and Communication of the Chahi, or the Chahi glossary at the back of this book. I'm pretty acquainted to role-playing, but it's a tabletop role-playing game for 2 or more players. Wow, that's not a lot. Alternate future, different from Mars, where Europe never colonized the Americas, and what we consider to be indigenous cultures blossomed into technologically advanced civilizations. You need this book, pencils and paper, and a specific set of dice. What is a role-playing game? I'm pretty keenly familiar with what that is. Telling a story... okay. Now, this is important. Rules are not here to hinder you, but give you and structure to define and focus stories. The role of the story guide is to help the players tell the character's story. Okay. You interpret the rules when there are disputes about the most important principle. The story is the goal. Telling a good story should be the driving motivator for players and the story guide. If the rules ever get in the way, the story guide should always feel empowered to adjust them for the sake of people's enjoyment. You have an official dice set? I love you. Alright, those look cute. It's a D12 system. Neat. Ooh. Why white and black? Interesting. Interesting. Alright, well, we'll get into that. Roll the player. There might only be a single player in your saga, or there could be more than 10. It's ambitious. It's ambitious to not design it for like 4 or however many. I love that it can be 1 or more. Each player is responsible for creating their character. Yup. Showing up for sessions as agreed to. Bringing a character with them, guiding their character's choices, understand who their character is, why they would make the choices they would, how to interact with other players in a way that's true to their character, but also productive and enjoyable for the entire group. While players should strive to be true to their characters, it should never be at the cost of the enjoyment of the group. Story guide may be the overall referee of the group, but all are responsible for their part to ensure everyone has a good time. Good. Like, these are really important clarifications that I agree with. Story guide is a referee, a director, and a writer. They portray all the characters in the story not played by players. They have a vision for what challenges players will face, what obstacles they'll have to overcome, and the roles of adversaries and allies. They interpret rules and make calls regarding an overall saga. They act as a group leader, handling scheduling of sessions. Boo! And out-of-game details. This might seem daunting, we're here to help. Alright. Oh, you have a mobile app. bitchin'! Coyote and Crow, D12s for a number of reasons. 12 sides can generate a wider range of results, and when it comes to storytelling, sometimes you don't want to be limited to 6 possibilities, totally. But the other reason is because it's not traditional. For a very long time, board game design has been dominated by American and European designers. When we built the game, we didn't want it to be set in just in an indigenous world. We wanted it to feel like an indigenous game. You can use D8s. Or D4s? I don't know. D12, I'm curious why specifically. Probably some mechanical reason they went with that. That seems like a hell of an undertaking. To try to create something that feels culturally different. Because they're absolutely right. TTRPG is heavily dominated by particularly American designers. Okay. People in Makasing think number 12 is sacred. Okay. That checks out. That makes sense. Oh god, I might be able to do like an hour of this, but my voice is already going. So it's an alternate history, future of an alternate history. In our world, monarchies of Europe pushed westward throughout the 15th century. Sad, crashing into something much more valuable, yeah. In Coyote and Crow, things took a different turn. This world's history went down a different path, and the result changed a landscape that bears little resemblance to our own. And what was the change? The people call it the Aoi. Aois? The darkest night, or the darkening land. Around the year we think of 1400 AD, something monumental happened. In years past, it was often said a great evil, a darkness, one so powerful that it forced the Great Spirit to flee, had covered the world. Later, it became understood what had struck the world, likely a massive meteor, bringing radiation of rare elements, as well as exotic matter previously unknown to our planet. The explanation held true whether one preferred poetic or scientific description. The result was that the Earth would plunge into severe climate change for hundreds of years. How it affected the rest of the world? No one knows for sure, but the people of what we now call North and South America were not let off easily. Faced growing northern ice shelf, extended winters, violent oceans, huge changes in animal and plant populations, starvation, and war. Tribes moved, changed, and evolved. They adapted to a world they inherited and used the gifts left to them by the Great Spirit. The Aois plunged the world into a deep ice age. It brought a strange mark on the plants and animals and people. This purple mark, called the Adanadi, a source of inspiration first and later power, eventually the weather improved. The seas calmed. The ice shelf slowly began to melt and retreat northward. New technologies and trade brought a huge upswing in the standard of living for all. The characters you play in this game are inheritors of these changes. These are people who live in a very different world from ours, and yet, where it counts, they're just like us. They love, fight, have families and dreams, nations go to war and make treaties, engineers and scientists make discoveries that improve and complicate daily living. People strive to make sense of their lives, bring meaning to their efforts, and understand the world around them. This is also a world where legend meets science. In our own world, this is often seen as a battle between right and wrong, good and evil. It's the idea that one has to be fundamentally correct, and by necessity, the other wrong. This viewpoint comes primarily from Western European way of thinking. It certainly does. And Coyote and Crow, an advanced piece of science, can still have spiritual value. A supernatural experience doesn't need to be dismissed because science doesn't easily explain it. For most folks, the mystical and the logical exist side by side on a daily basis. Many things in this game are rooted in our shared history. The city of Cahokia, for example, is a real place and worth reading about. It absolutely is. It's fucking fascinating. Where appropriate, real-world names have been kept for certain things. Non-English words in this game are either based on real-world indigenous languages or crafted from real languages as part of a fictional language we have developed for the game called Chahi. On the other hand, many things we've taken for granted in our world will have no basis in Coyote and Crow. For example, people of this world decided at some point to unify and share an annual calendar. They picked the night of the Awi. Is it Awi or Awis? Awis. I don't know. It was, after all, one of the few things all the tribes and nations had a very specific shared memory of. In this game, when someone refers to the year 693, they're referring to 693 years after the Awis. They have no concept of Christian calendars. It's vital to understand that without contact from Europeans, certain things we take for granted in our modern world don't currently exist. There are never cars in this world because there were never wagons. There are no combustion engines, gunpowder, or traditional firearms. There's no fry bread, no cows, chickens, pigs, and so much more. Instead, the people of Coyote and Crow developed societies and technologies as they had for thousands of years prior, through necessity, creativity, cleverness, and North and South America's rich abundance of resources. Some other things that don't exist in this world. Alcoholic drinks. Alcohol exists, but not part of the culture in any relevant format. Fossil fuels. Currently embedded shame over nudity and sexuality. Wheat products. Yeah, it makes sense. Industrial meat farming, and the list is long. Because of just how different this world might be, often in unexpected ways, we're gonna sometimes call it comparisons to a real world to help you understand how this one is different. Hope it helps you picture and embrace this vibrant world. From here on out, we're gonna leave our real world behind and dive into the new one. This book will focus on the Makasin, North America, and the people who live there. More specifically, we'll be detailing the cities of Cahokia and the area surrounding it, better known as the Free Lands. Future books will detail other nations of North America and the people of Central and South America, the Azayang and Abayang. I'm so excited for more lore. Like, even if I never played this, the fucking lore is so exciting. This is Coyote and Crow. It's a new tabletop role-playing game that is about an alternate history where the Americas were never colonized, and it's not Afro-punk, indigenous punk, solar punk. Solar punk is probably closest for the genre that this is. It's so fucking cool. The world that could be. 700 years ago, a purple streak crossed the night sky. Many tribes of the time said that it was the Great Spirit leaving them behind, abandoning the world to its fate. In the days following, the skies filled with dark clouds. The air choked with ash, seas frothed and raged. Once the snows fell that winter, they fell long and hard, harder than any could remember. Over the next few years, winter grew in strength, dominating the seasonal cycle. Food became scarce as people starved, hostilities flared, and wars broke out. Throughout the land, tribes struggled against the earth and against each other. Ice caps crept down from the north, growing thicker and stronger. Actually, this is in the future? This is set around 2100, according to our calendar-ish. Pushing people together, forcing them to share land and resources. Every tribe had to face the hard truth of possible extinction. Some met that very fate. But people also endured. They managed survival. At first, slowly they adapted, and eventually they didn't just survive, but they thrived. In the East, great leaders began to shape concepts of fair government. In the West and North, brilliant artists and storytellers captivated audiences and gave hope to the desperate. In the Southeast, there were incredible advances in medicine and biology. In the Southwest, breakthroughs in mathematics and farming changed everything on the continent. Combined with trade and other technology coming from the central and southern continents, life across the land began to transform from barely livable to a triumphant return from the brink. No one can deny that things really changed with the realization that the Adanati, the gift, it started hundreds of years back, and no one is exactly sure when or where, although the earliest scientific evidence suggests that the first instances of the gift were seen more than 500 years ago, just a couple hundred years after the Yawis. People began to notice purple strains, or marks on certain plants, animals, and people. Many people at the time took it as a sign that the Great Spirit might be gone, but that she had left them a tool, a gift, something to help them get through the darkest night and the horrors that it brought. For generations, it was carefully cultivated and bred, treated as sacred, It wasn't until advances of the understanding of biology and chemistry that tribes were able to unlock the true potential of the Adenati, and identify that it in itself was a form of life, something beyond known biology that remains within the body of an individual. That's fucking cool. Introducing more of the Adenati into the body at just the right point in adolescence transforms a person permanently, improving them physiologically and sometimes granting them abilities beyond normal human parameters. That's insanely cool. The choice to take a specific form of the Adenati, concentrated from a specific animal, became known as choosing your path. When different nations and tribes have an array of ceremonies and customs accompanying this ritual, they all have many common aspects. Once chosen and consumed, the person is generally considered an adult, and permanently is set on that path. Paths are commonly named after animals, since taking Adenati from a specific animal allows a gift to carry genetic information from the previous host to the individual, making the two now literal relatives. Neat. This is both spiritual in nature and scientifically based. It's not just based, it's scientifically based. Most people have consumed the Adenati and gone about daily lives. Some step into a larger circle, a place where heroes are born and stories that last for generations are created. You'll be playing these characters, people who are destined to become part of legends told around future fires. In the last 40 years, the damage done by the Awis seems finally to be healing. Winters are shortening, summers are growing longer, the ice caps are retreating, and the sea is calming. Within the government's curiosity outside world beyond their current geographical borders is starting to outweigh political strength of those that cling to fear of the past. What's been known for hundreds of years that there were other continents, maybe even other people across the world, the weather and internal political strife has kept people close to home. Now though, with the climate evening out, nations possessing rapidly advancing technology and the will to use it, the race is on to explore how this new world, to discover new resources and power, to make discovery, scientific progress, to meet new people, for crafting strategic alliances. So you're telling me these motherfuckers got chemistry but haven't managed to cultural exchange their way into getting drunk as balls on Aztec ugly? I call bullshit. I think it's pretty intentional that they're saying alcohol isn't a thing. Consumption of alcohol isn't a thing, particularly because alcoholism and the import of alcohol into North America was a devastating tool of colonialism that was used to destroy tribes and families and bodies. And so by saying that's not a part of this, it's a rejection of something that for the people writing this game and the people of these nations is a deeply European institution that's been introduced. Now, alcohol had been used in spiritual and religious ceremony in North America, and I think they'll preserve that in some aspect, but that pushback is very intentional, I think. But I do agree that it's alcohol is one of the earliest inventions of humanity. And in North America, alcohol was invented a couple of different times that we know of. But the difficulty of distillation without agriculture made it so that it wasn't enjoyed recreationally, I think. But things haven't gone according to plan. Ships sent to sea in search of distant lands rarely return. Expeditions north through the snow and ice are often lost for good. The few that return have come back mostly empty-handed. Rumors swirl that what they've found, what they've experienced, and what awaits people across the waters. Many people were prepared to discount legends of monsters and spirits. They became harder to dismiss when people living on the outskirts of well-traveled land began reporting some of the strange phenomena. Many now believe that while the change in weather has allowed people to venture out, it might also be opening the door to let things in. Now, all the dangers within this world aren't just external. With a surge in population, an explosion of new technology, old treaties created when the climate was suffering are no longer enough to keep some nations and leaders from looking to expand their borders over their neighbors. Many nations were created during times of war out of necessity. Many tribes and factions of this world have very little value for nationalism. Leaders of these nations also often find themselves struggling to simply keep their governments from falling apart from the inside. Civil war or secession is often just as much a threat as international conflict. Fears of espionage run rampant, especially with spies now possessing access to Adenati gifted abilities. Regardless of how comfortable and steady life might be for the people now, no one is unaware of the change that lies on the horizon. The era of the darkest night is coming to an end, yet many of the obstacles previous generations overcame didn't change the fact that new challenges and mysteries lie just ahead. This is the world your characters will step into and the backdrop for their future legends. Below is a map and brief timeline of historical events on the continent of Makasing in this alternate future that will help you understand some of the more important milestones and turning points for the world. Okay, this does upscale. So Cahokia and the Freelands is where this is largely based. I can't fucking wait to see what they've done with Seattle. Honestly, I don't want to play in the Freelands. I want to play here. I want to play where I am. The Tlusuk Alliance? I can't tell if that's an L or an I. I think that's an I. Tlusuk Alliance. I'm thrilled of. The DNA Republic down here. Again, fucking fascinating. Would love to get into that. The Hadonuansi. And oh god, I want the lore. Just let me mainline the fucking lore. Can't let Europe ruin a perfectly good poison. You're not wrong. The Eskan Empire and Kituagi Federation. And Permanent Ice Zone. Oh god, I want to keep reading, but my fucking voice is going. Okay, alright. 1402, the Awis arrives. Winters are longer. The Hadonazi Alliance is born around 115-140. Cahokia is reborn. Harsh weather returns. Strictly organized farming becomes vital to keeping people alive. Okay, so this is how you start forming nation-states more akin to what we see in Eurasia. Two-Spirit Leader rises to power in the Southwest after visions lead them to create the Base 12 mass system. Oh, it's a Base 12 system! Shit! Uh-oh. Cool. I'm gonna struggle with that a little. New era farming, medicine, and associated technology. Infighting drops, this do mortality rates. Math begins to be taught as something sacred. Engineering golden age begins. Purple stain begins to appear. Hadoansi nation surges in power. Tribes along the east coast become influential, form a massive nation-state. While not unduly hostile, they project influence and strength in a way that many other tribes find threatening. Alliances and treaties continue to be signed. Social and cultural lines between tribes continue to morph. 5 geographic areas begin to form on the continent that will eventually make the 5 nations of North America. Southwest, Northwest, Southeast, Northeast, and Central. Central area of the continent doesn't form into a single nation, but instead a loose coalition of city-states dominated by Cahokia, which is rapidly becoming a focal point for scholarly, spiritual, and political discourse across the continent. Adenadi starts becoming a thing. Base 12, this is why we can't have nice things. It's a better system for some things. Base 10 is actually not great at a lot of things. I think Base 8 has a lot of advantages too. There's a huge technological, political, and social cultural growth as the Adenadi allows for change. Small wars erupt over evolving concepts of farming rights and control over major freshwater sources. Yeah, like the fucking Mississippi. Let's look at the Mississippi. That's the dominating thing of the free lands, the upwaters of the Mississippi. It's very hard for this to not become a single political entity. For this to naturally not become a single political entity, because it so dominates the landscape. I'm a little surprised that the free lands have all of the Great Lakes, as many of the Great Lakes are interconnected, and the Hadenawasi, well, actually, like, the Ojibwe and Three Fires Council are actually dominating this area in our own timeline, so I'm a little confused at this border. This seems like somebody drew a line on a map. This really feels like somebody drew a line on the map, because there's no geographical entities in here that would dictate this line, so I'm very curious about how they explain this through lore, or maybe they'll readdress this later. I think they wanted Cahokia in here, and this is the only way to keep Cahokia in here without, like, doing some real weird border gore. And this makes sense, and this largely makes sense. But we have all of this. Nevada, Utah, that seems to be unclaimed, so I'm very curious what's going on in here. Because giving the Dine the Republic, but not the... I have so many questions about the world building. Not in a critical way, but like in a I wanna learn kind of way. Incas use decimal, so it's clearly superior. Really? I didn't know that. First models of 3D printers appear in 1821 to 1903. There's a huge technological, political, social, cultural growth as the Adenadi allow for rapid change. Small wars erupt over evolving concepts as farmer right and control over freshwater sources. Imagine that. Wars over new concepts like farming rights at the same time that you're making 3D printers. That's so different. Rise in education and drop in mortality began to cause social upheaval and the questioning of tradition. Math and science becomes increasingly important to the fabric of everyday life. Multi-year break in harsh weather conditions. In the states of Makassing to assemble in Cahokia and discuss exploration of the outside world. Safe sea travel had not been possible due to the ice sheet in the north and almost constant blizzard conditions. Tribe decide the time is right to send explorers out to see what the world holds. Explorers leave, few return. Those that do tell stories about desolate wastelands, strange creatures that seem right out of legends, powerful beings who wield the Adenadi with incredible might. Those reports either fall into rumor or kept quiet by governments. Okay, good to know that even here governments are like, there's no war in Ba Sing Se. Everything's fine. You don't need to worry about that outside world and the fucking monsters that are out there. It's cool. Harsh weather returned, preventing governments from sending out fresh groups of explorers. Religious uprisings through many nations involve belief that return of explorers that change back to harsh weather is a sign that the Great Spirit hasn't come back yet, and going out beyond natural borders is inviting evil and chaos. The All Tribes War erupts. Initially a dispute between the Eskin Empire and the Dine Republic, things escalate and both continents are pulled in. A war that economically cripples vast majority of nations in Makassing, Azaying, and Abaying. Cahokia escapes relatively unharmed and generally becomes recognized as one of the most important cities in the world. Yeah, this is the troubling thing about the position of the Eskin Empire in Central America. You got South America right there, and although the Darian Gap. The Darian Gap is what I wanted to talk about. The Darian Gap is so the Aztec, I'm gonna go out and assume their borders go to like here or here, and then you'll have some kind of Maya state down here. It's not on the map, so I don't know. But like Maya people live here now. So maybe that was... I'm curious how, even in our modern day, the Darian Gap right here is insanely difficult to travel across. There are no roads. You will see there's a road going here, and a road here, and betwixt the two, nary a road runs, right? There's nothing. It's very swampy, rough terrain. There's very little here. So conflict between Central and South America through here, it's quite an undertaking. But granted, you don't have to go through here. You can have naval campaigns, and God, Central America is in such an unenviable position for trying to hold and maintain power, project power one way or the other. In the same way that, like, the Middle East is. You have so many... So much land adjacent to you that you have to look at. And North America, like, the United States is in a great position. What's north of us? Fucking frozen waste. So we only had to project power southward and internally. So I don't know. That's interesting. I'm very curious about the All Tribes War. Aztec booze thing was a meme, but I wonder how they lure their way into Aztec cultural expansion. Stops roughly at the modern-day Mexico-U.S. border. Well, yeah, this isn't untrue of the cultural groups that existed here. So they're Mogollon and Hohokam cultures of let's just bring this back. Mogollon and Hohokam cultures of southern Arizona. I know a decent amount about southwestern United States indigenous history. There are some architectural similarities with some things here, but the layout looks like let's see here. God, it's inverted. It doesn't go all the way to the Mississippi, right? So looks like it stops near Houston. The Aztecan Empire, and so we'll draw a line from like Houston over here. The Rio Grande is like such a good political boundary. They're not using it. They have all the Rio Grande going up into the DNA Republic. So yeah, I'm really curious about these borders too. This border seems very straight and weird. This is along the Appalachian Mountains, so that makes sense. And this is kind of the Great Plains, so I have questions. And I hope they'll be teased out. You know what, honestly, I'm gonna want to keep this open probably. Where was I? Decades pass in relative peace, prosperity, and technological growth. Many nations still trade and do business. After this is like this is modern day time frame. Weather breaks in a way it hasn't before. Climate settles and returns to pre-Awi levels. Seas calm, allowing for safer sea travel, especially with new advanced technology. Explosion of food, resources, and technology unlike anything ever seen. The current year is like 2110. Nations are looking to see how to gain advantages over their neighbors, to prosper further, develop their lives, protect and nurture the world around them, maybe even try to explore beyond their continental borders. Yeah, that straight border is awfully colonial. Yeah, there's something very, very... this is a political border. This is a very political border. This is not a natural border. This is even kind of a political border. Unless I'm missing something here. And I might be. Yeah, I'm so curious about the history of these other nations. Like, I'm not gonna... Well, actually, any of it. But I'm very curious. I know what Cahokia is. Cahokia is, world you're entering is a big one. Trying to detail even 5 nations in this book would be a monumental task. That's just Moccasin, not the other 7 nations. There are 7 others. Okay, covering all the free lands is still an enormous task. Instead, we suggest you start your game in Cahokia. Yep. It's the largest city, 2 million people, culturally diverse, expansive city. It's a sovereign city-state. It does not rule over the free lands, but it leads the other cities and municipalities through stronger relationships and shared understanding. Cahokia sits on 500 square miles along the Mississippi? Not Mississippi, Mississippi River, roughly where St. Louis exists, and extends south. Yep, that's where Cahokia is. City has a long and fascinating history. Structures date more than 1,000 years prior. City mostly abandoned prior to the Allies, but was revitalized years later as trade became more essential than ever. Became a birthplace of modern exchange, trade language called the Chaki, most languages on the continent. The originator of the most recognized currency in use, Nisi. It's sprawling, energetic city, but not a hurried or crowded one. Between the large underground tunnel system, plenty of available land, and warming weather, there's space for everyone. During the day, people work, play, learn, and farm. At night, there's growing entertainment and leisure scenes as people begin to truly reap the rewards of hard work and advances. Without poverty and inequality present in real-world cities, there's not much petty crime, but it doesn't mean Cahokia is a safe place, or that there aren't dangers. Clashing belief systems, political, spiritual, or other, are always simmering below the surface. There's secrets around every corner, and new threats lurking in every shadow. Oh, damn. Alright, so this is pretty zoomed out. Pampanshin Nahikongi Matawi Chizi Hapaki Minan Nabamo Wijiwanka. These are neighbor. Oh my god. So here's different, like, little noted, annotated areas, and this is what they look like up close. Oh god, look at these weird ass boats that they have. Because they're based off of canoes. Yeah. Oh, I love that. It's so bright and colorful too. Yeah, plain sign language or bust. It must be somewhat based off of that, right? Subterranean rail. Damn, wish that were me. Subterranean rail stations. Cool. Mounds. Oh, look at all these fucking mounds. Yeah, alright. Okay, I'm not gonna learn too much about the city right now. I will prior to running a game or playing a game, but that's a lot. I'm gonna skip this bit for now because I care more about the bigger stuff. There's a council of 12. Citizens affiliate more than 200 different tribal affiliations. 99% have gone through the Adenati. Since the number of people who gain superhuman abilities from the Adenati is about 20%, 400,000 people are gifted. Jesus Christ, imagine having a city of not just like a few supers, but hundreds of thousands of supers. Interesting. Power is distributed through solar panels, wind turbines, hydroelectric taps. No city grid or overall power structure. Homes have multiple ways to generate more than enough power for their own needs. Walkways flow between mounds and the tunnel entrances. A dozen trains continuously move through the single circular route of the city. Even more than the rest of the world, Cahokia is buzzing with the latest technology. Geothermal, wind, hydroelectric, and solar power all contribute to clean and powerful supply of energy within Cahokia. Heating, cooling, electricity, and other power are plentiful and consistent. Human waste is funneled to 4 treatment facilities. God damn, you thought this through. I'm impressed. Inside these autonomous facilities are millions of beetles and grubs that consume the waste and breed inside their enclosed spaces. Surrounding the facilities is a deep, narrow moat filled with fish that eat the beetles that escape. What? What? That's awesome. Separately, Jutsu technology is used to pump fresh water for drinking, irrigation, bathing from the river and other water sources. Goes through strict filtration. Cool. Cool. Places to stay for short-term visits, similar to a hotel or short-term rental apartment, are available for travelers, just as common for visitors to stay with acquaintances, colleagues, or distant relatives who have room to spare. The larger family units, not uncommon for visitors to stay with friends for extended periods. There are no people facing homelessness in Cahokia. All permanent residents are given homes to suit their needs. Fuck. American feeling down bad reading about this. No one's required to work. Oh, come on! Me, man. Almost everyone of adult age who can pay taxes does in some form or another. Operating a private business within city limits is heavily taxed, but not so much that it drives away business. Cahokia is still at its heart a trading city, and its market is unmatched. Classic food triad are the Three Sisters, corn, beans, and squash. Yep. I'm dying. Fuck. Okay, this is great. They're explaining how the Three Sisters system works. Oh my god, that's cool as hell. Supplemented by new and diverse crops. Tomato, sweet pepper, chili, chia seeds, and melons from the Dine Republic. It sounds good as hell. Fields of amaranth and quinoa. Potato, sweet potato. Fuck, man. Sign me up. Smoked salmon from the Tiswak Alliance, maple syrup from the Haruansi, pinon nuts and cholla buds from the Dine Republic brought in by travelers and traders presented as gifts. There's buffalo, elk, deer, antelope, managed by stewards who use a system of game hunting permits to ensure they're kept at healthy population levels, and meat is properly respected, obtained, handled, and transported to the city. Animals are not penned or domesticated in any way, and are still hunted in their old habitat. That's very cool. After doing the math and realizing it's about 20% supers, my brain immediately thought of the anti-bender fascists in Legend of Korra. Yeah, I kind of, especially with like the Five Nations thing, I've been getting some Legend of Korra like Avatar vibes, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good universe to draw inspiration from. Look at this. Look at these fucking farming robots. What? Oh my god, this is cool as hell. Modern agriculture is allowed freedom from struggle for subsistence. People have traditional knowledge of wild plants. Harvesting wild onions in springtime, berries and wild fruits in the summertime, nuts and autumn fruits as days grow colder. It's a vital and cherished part of social life. In addition to the wild foods being an important part of people's diets, plants are not so much truly wild as cultivated with a light hand. Yep. Not by specific individuals, but by communities as a whole through generations of stewardship. It's absolutely correct. Because there's not nearly full employment, wide range of healthy food options, connection to the land through active lifestyle with time spent in nature, the social safety net, citizens of Kohi are well fed and healthy for the most part. Diet of the average citizen is majority plant-based, supplemented with wild game. Vast amount of grazing farmland available. There will likely not be any food issues for the foreseeable future as long as the weather continues to improve. It's just so long as the weather doesn't fuck up. Home-cooked meals are still the most common way for people to eat, but a concept similar to restaurants have blossomed into the city. Restaurants are actually, like, pretty recent historically. Instead of a menu to choose from, establishments serve a complete prearranged menu on particular days instead of a menu to choose from. Love that. Concept of individual dining is not unheard of, but it's fairly rare. Meals are intended to be shared, especially in a restaurant setting. People visit a restaurant, they essentially are being welcomed into the home to sit at the hearth of a chef who lives and cooks there. That's cute as hell. Everyone who, when they arrive alone or with a group, enjoys a meal together as family, with the understanding sharing a meal under the chef's roof creates a connection among them. I love that. Chefs are also healers, using extensive knowledge. Oh my god, my ex would have loved that. She would love that idea. Heal the sick in their community. While the individuals visit a chef to enlist their skills as a healer, chef provides medicine specifically suited to heal their ailment, and the individuals encouraged to stay for the meal as part of the treatment. All the other diners attend the meal that evening offer prayer for the person's recovery and renewed strength, as well as the being of each individual is the well-being of each individual is the concern of the community as a whole. Free market, abstract money, Nizi is a unit of currency. It was originally on hemp paper. Wouldn't know what that's like. Last 40 years may transition to digital currency. Papers generally no longer used in city limits. Papers sometimes still used in remote communities, so it can be obtained when needed from city-run banks. Almost anything can be purchased from the central market. Free market? You can't say the no word. Yeah. There are few restrictions on purchases. Black market trade centers offer developed drugs, experimental cybernetics, and weapons that go beyond uses for hunting. Makes both Cahokia and the economy unusual, and indeed all the modern world a little different is a proliferation of complex biofueled 3D printer called GATS. Short basic items can be printed at home for extremely low cost. What can't be so this is post-scarcity. They're making it very clear this is solar punk post-scarcity. The market tends to be full of handcrafters, tech savants, artists and food makers, and fringe chemists. It's a thrilling time to be an inventor in Cahokia. There are strict laws against theft, assault, murder, and violent acts. However, trespassing and other concepts around land ownership are less regulated. The city actually maintains stewardship within the city limits. Violence isn't always illegal. In Cahokia, 2 or more people are allowed to engage in a ranged combat, even lethal combat, so long as there's a 7-day waiting period, an agreed-upon location, and a neutral witness to the agreement. This agreement isn't considered murder and isn't a crime. Because of this, violence is rarely more than a fistfight, and murder isn't a common occurrence. People often cool off, find other ways or solutions before anyone is killed. Every city in the free land has a panel of judges, and those judges have the final say. Trials happen up to 3 times. The first time the judge makes a decision, explains to the person what they need to do to reverse the decision. Second trial happens if the judge rules the same way, the decision's final. But if the decision is reversed, it can go on to a 3rd trial. 3 trials can happen in 1 day, or over the course of months, depending on the crime and the evidence involved. While most people accept these judgments, many opposed the council believe the judges are corrupt and favor the wealthy and the powerful. Maybe. As for justice, the Suyata have the authority to kill anyone they believe. If they believe that anyone else's life is endangered, or would be if the Suyata themselves died. However, the Suyata are not authorized to kill someone if they are defending themselves. Instead, they're expected to use non-lethal force to restrain the offender. Okay, so the cops are only able to kill people if someone else's life is in danger, not their own. I would love for that to be a policy for police forces in the United States.
But then no one would want to be a cop because you can't defend yourself.
Yeah, only good people would do it. Only good, selfless people would do it. It should be the position. Not people looking for a fucking excuse. At trial, the worst sentence that can be handed down, is 20 years of forced community service. That's the worst. No life in prison. No, execution. Worst thing is 20 years of service. Community service, the offender loses all privileges as a citizen. Unable to earn money, they become a ward at the city and they live in a city barracks. Their sole job becoming to do assigned labor and rehabilitation towards the community that they've harmed. Okay, so restorative justice, cool. They're marked as an offender and lose all privileges afforded by their tribe. If an offender attempts to flee the city or escape punishment, the Seata are sent after them. If anyone's convicted of multiple murders or multiple times of murder or other serious crimes, the judge has the option of banishment. These extreme punishments don't happen often, but when they do, there's almost always backlash against the government, usually from the offender's tribe, who feels they should have greater say in the punishment or forgiveness in the city. What about having to change their name legally to Cringe Piss Pants for 20 years? What you're saying is I can have a sword lesbian that keeps getting into duels? Yeah, right? Right? Having duels be okay is rad as fuck. Like, reading that, I was thinking, like, okay, so, like, there's a big bad or, like, a crime boss or, like, this antagonist, and you agree to just duel them. That's how you're gonna take them out. An honorable duel. And you have to have the 7-day waiting period so we can, like, roleplay through that 7-day waiting period with, like, the preparations, both, like, physical and material and spiritual and emotional and psychological. Like, each day could be focused on, like, a different aspect of preparation, and you can have, like, kind of a montage at the same time. Like, that also gives you time to think about if you want to cancel, if this is really the best way to solve this, and it isn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. I love, mechanically, what that can introduce to the story. Rehabilitation is important in Cahokia. Serving community is less about punishment, more about compensation and understanding. Once a sentence has been completed, there's a welcoming ceremony where the offender is publicly acknowledged and the aggrieved party is offered an opportunity to physically embrace them, which they often take. In general, there's a sense of equanimity among the citizens of Cahokia. However, a vocal minority claims that the council and judges play favorites at best and are deeply corrupt at worst. So they're giving you the option here of saying this could be true. It could be true that the council and judges are corrupt. It could be true that they're right. If you're native, you can fit in your belief systems. If you're not, fucking don't. We recommend you don't look at the belief and faith in Coyote and Crow the way Romans believe, or in gods like Jupiter and Mars, or modern Christians view Jesus. Instead, do reading. Go do some fucking homework, Whitey, on animism, dualism versus materialism, and spiritualism. Please do not describe real-world native beliefs to your character. Feel free to leave your character without spirituality. Instead, make up something whole cloth from materials in this book. In that way, you won't inadvertently be misrepresenting actual beliefs. Yep, cool. Spirituality is important. Very broadly, almost everyone believes in dualism over materialism. As the same, most people believe there's more to the world than what can be seen or touched. This section describes only the broadest sense of spiritual beliefs, only in the city of Cahokia. Just like whole volumes could be written on spiritual beliefs, practices, and spiritualities of even a small region in the world. Yeah. Great Spirit is a common thread. She embodies nature, the universe, and more. Tribes and regions have different names for the Great Spirit, or different concepts about her nature or origins. Other beings, like Crow, for example, are both a singular entity and simultaneously represented by everyday interactions, such as all the crows that one can see. It can be called gods or spirits, but neither word really summarizes them. While Crow might have powers or abilities, it's still just the being of the world. like all art, and still falls under the care of the Great Spirit. Finally, a TTRPG that encourages my cult of Big City Sky Mommy. I can't say no. I can't say no. Dozens of holidays, traditions, and festivals in the city. These are observed in many forms in the city of Cahokia. Especially, these celebrations are reasons for tribes to join together collectively and away from specific tribal practices. Winter rebirth. Okay, these are celebrations that I'm gonna skip over because there's 400 fucking pages of this and I'm dying. Organized general education is relatively new compared to other advances. Cahokia, a mathematician who disagreed with a peer, saying that very sacredness was the reason math needed to be shared with everyone. A passionate speech to convince their peers that because math was everywhere in every aspect of life, people should at least be able to understand the beauty of it and see it. Mathematician. Okay. Now people from all walks of life who've taken an expertise in their fields often take time, anywhere from a year to a few years, to go to a university and teach. Oh! Few people make a lifetime out of teaching, however. That's a very interesting and important distinction. Children are educated at home. Around 11 or 12, once they and their family feel they're ready for more, they're allowed to begin attending university, taking classes that they're drawn to. People often end up in professions the same as their parents. It's not looked down upon to break away and do something different. There are no degrees or certificates given out, but people do base their experience on a topic around how many years they studied at university. Education at the university level is funded entirely by the government. Sounds like a skill issue. In the last 400 years, nothing has changed the daily life of everyone on the planet more than the rapid advance of technology. Not even the Adenati. Some people believe that the two are entwined, but it's important to note technology and devotion to sciences were well underway before the Adenati was utilized in its current form. In fact, the deep understanding of the world, true power of the Adenati, would likely have never been unleashed. Most people in Cahokia, and indeed much of Makassing, live a daily life filled with science and spirituality, and the two do not conflict. In the scientific world, there isn't much direct international or internal cooperation between groups. In an unregulated environment, technology can come up in flares. Individual scientists can often work for years entirely on their own. There's a tendency for scientists to go a little slower, despite their lack of regulation. It's not a lack of ambition, but instead a sense of curiosity that drives most scientists. This does sometimes lead governments, businesses, and organizations feel like scientists don't work fast enough on certain projects. For the most part, governments are not yet drivers of science and are often reactionary to new discoveries. Okay, that's a big distinction. Time is looked at very differently between cultures and the world of Coyote and Crow. It always caused years of darkness and cloudy skies. Without stars or the sun as a constant, many cultures struggled with not just things like calculating seasonal change, but tracking the general passing of years. Some explicit records were kept, especially in Abazang and the Escan Empire. It was centuries after the Aois became accurate record keeping. It came along. God, I can't fucking read. Had much to do with the two-spirit mathematician in the DNA Republic. Their revelation, time is tracked in years. Each year is broken into 12 months. Different nations give the months different names, but they're named after important spirits, animals, or ceremonies. First 7 months have 30 days in them, last 5 have 31. Okay? Each day is made up of 12 segments, what we might call hours. Each hour is broken down into 12 segments. So, each hour is 2 hours long, and then there's minutes, let's say, and each minute is 10 minutes long. And then I don't want to do the math to figure out how long a second is. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Skills are superficial. These are superficial mathematical changes, though. More important is the perception of time. Non-natives might see themselves moving through time the way they see time move through space while traveling up an escalator. Escalator is already moving, they step on, they're now moving forward in time. It's only one direction the escalator moves in, and you're along for the ride, even if you walk up to it. Oh, even if you walk up it. Don't ever pass something you passed previously. However, people with Coyote and Crow see things a little differently. They would see themselves as being on a treadmill, conveyor is still moving, and they're still walking, but the conveyor itself is a cycle, a circle, moving in place underneath the walker. Each new year isn't a next in a line, it's a restart, back to the beginning. While this won't impact general gameplay, it's an important thing to note. We can all live in the same world, and still see time very differently. 1 second equals 50 seconds. Huh. Yeah, that hurts my brain to think about, but it's cool. Cahokia is continuous glorious clash of culture. Art is a distinct activity, had a late start. Most globally known art comes from the Tisawak Alliance region of the continent. Cool. Okay. Handcrafted items imbued with personality and history, even practicality, are highly respected in a world where 3D printing provides all prerequisites for survival. Some younger artists believe art doesn't have to have separate, independent meaning, but can simply exist for its own sake. Get him out! Get him out of there! Oh no! Throughout the continent, tribes based on music built music based on drums, vocals, and wind. String instruments exist, but never really caught on in any real fashion, and only continue in obscurity. Percussion and wind instruments dominated music in Cahokia. Music is vital to tribes and nations. Citizens participate in music in some fashion in holidays, festivals, ceremonies. Music isn't considered to be owned by anyone, so no one person or band can profit from claiming any individual song. Anyone can duplicate a song or improve upon it. Fuck you, DMCA. Anyone can transmit a recorded piece of music for free with permission from the artist and in some cases from the tribe. Recorded music is only ever listened to virtually and privately when using second eyes. What the fuck are second eyes? That's a new word. That's a new word. Let's check in on the soup. So 12 knot hours divided into 144 knot minutes divided into 1,728 knot seconds. Yeah. That's super interesting. Okay. Any music listened to in a public setting is always done by live artists, even if they're on synthesizers or other electronic equipments. Huh. 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 Interesting. So, like, no shopping music. No elevator music. Or if there is, it's all live, played live. Or genre of music that cover all styles. Lack of ownership over songs has created a drive within the musical world to sound different or innovative enough that other artists can't duplicate their sound. This way, musicians are often able to differentiate themselves and become recognizable. Musicians are often healers, and music is just a part of what they want to bring to people. See themselves as being altruistic, bringing songs, spirits, and power to listeners in humble fashion. Strong tradition of satire and politics in music. Sing about corruption, murder, controversies, and do so in a way that often spreads incredibly fast, raising awareness of social issues. Prior to modern communication, song was one of the fastest ways to transmit news. A more recent development is musicians writing comedy songs, sometimes meant to convey funny parables, but often poking fun at political or popular cultural figures. Some music isn't about lyrics conveying a specific message or story. Instead, a song is simply about a feeling it connection, and sound are meant to tap into something deeper than that can be conveyed with language. These songs are there to connect to something higher. If you DM this, you gotta either come up with new words for the time units or completely handwave it because boy is it a mindfuck. Yeah. I mean, it's not often you need more than hours in TTRPG. Seconds doesn't really matter, right? Except in combat, and maybe we'll get to that. Minutes, I mean, it's not so different as to cause a breakdown in communication, I think. There's comedy, there's poetry. Listen, this is a lot to read, and my voice is going. Ooh. Tawaratron, similar to Tawaraton, similar to lacrosse. Hunting. Chunky, rolling a small ceramic hoop away from the active player who throws a spear-like object. Yeah, okay, I know that one. Alama, hard rubber ball through opposing goals. With hard surfaces and dense heavy ball. Come under scrutiny for being too violent. Yeah, fuck. Yeah, that ball game was played in Arizona and New Mexico, not just in places we think of as being Aztec, but we're in culturally adjacent areas as well. Some star players who last more than a season are hailed as heroes. Okay. Hunting, first person to like paintball the deer is how that works. That's pretty cool. Gachu. Large open grass rectangle involves kicking a ball from one end to the other by two teams. It's under fire by Aranari-powered players who were often hurt badly when playing the game. Yeah, okay. Despite the lethality of the sport. Okay, 12 hole. Oh boy. How did you find my NSFW account? Marbles. 5-walled arena. Gravity fields through the use of Jutsu technology, creating 3-dimensional playing field with changing levels of resistance. Game requires a keen hand-eye coordination, sharply strategic mind. What? That's cool as fuck. Racing skimmers and sunwings, foot races, marathons, tracking competitions, archery, wrestling, other fighting style competitions, dancing are all done competitively. Other games. Game lodges. Dice cards. Sky's Voice is a dice-based game where instead of numbers, the symbols on the 6 sides represent stars in the sky. You roll dice, they match them into fictional constellations that tell stories about the birth, life, and death of a fictional world based on the star patterns. That's fucking cool! Players vote on who told the best story. Another popular game is where players roll 12-sided dice and attempt to get a high score without busting. I tell you what, I know how to play that game. I know how to play the game where you try to get a high score without busting. I am familiar with that game. It's called edging. I'm familiar with that game. Dance clubs proliferate. Dance is a popular pastime. Kamayak, love music. Tomoyak, thunder music. Nayak, rapid fire music. EDM. Sumayak, long music. Yalpan Mayak is psychedelic music. Oh, dude. Its name means tea music. Oh, fuck. This sounds rad as hell. Deeper connection in the late-night, mind-altering substances added to the popular Japan tea, clubs are popular among intellectuals and artists and are frequently centers of all sorts of innovation. Dude, I wanna fucking have some trippy tea and listen to psychedelic music in a club? That sounds awesome! Fucking sign me up, dude! Jazz has gotta be the love music, right? Flute music, electronics are now an important component. Love and seduction. Heavy elements of romance and seduction, though no non-romantically inclined individuals favoring Kamiak often visit as well. Many individuals visit Kamiak clubs expecting hookups or lasting romances. Romantic or sexual interest is not necessary to enjoy love music. Kamiak thunder music is passionate music. Drums and complex vocal arrangements. Style of dance that's freeform, athletic, and sometimes gymnastic in style. That sounds cool, but this is not my jam. This is highly not my jam. Rapid fire music is a genre of fast-paced electronic music. Angry young people. It's associated with angry young people. A degree of drugs and violence is more associated with Tutsakunakeya. It's too long. I'm gonna struggle with that for a while. Although no one disputes musical talent for those who perform in the clubs. Lung music is choral music. Increasingly sophisticated over the years, style and accompanying dance genre is accompanied young and old, and is often associated with the nostalgia of elders. Oh fuck, there's more. Nanepana Ulawan, bragging song, is a form that combines poetry with drum and electronica. Highly energetic and associated with an experimental form derived from traditional dance. Both cutting edge and chic, much of the fashion comes from Nanepana Ulawan bands and dancers alike. Rural agricultural communities play packed clubs in Makisang. The Wobya, a war song. Highly rigid but highly aggressive genre based on drums and voice, goes hand in hand with competitive dance. The standards are high, and while some people consider the genre stodgy, clubs are incredibly popular, as much for the dancing as for the music. I want to hear some of this shit. I'm so interested. Smoke lodges. So dance clubs are a thing. Smoke lodges are a thing. Smoke lodges are social organizations, are religious and benevolent societies, use these spaces to work together to achieve aims beyond the ability of individuals. Conflicts do arrive when leadership is faltering morally by becoming greedy, vain, arrogant, or in some other way self-seeking. Sweats take place all over the city. Sweating is an act of trust and hospitality to invite an acquaintance or associate, let alone a stranger, to join a sweat. Sweats run continuously outside the city's hospitals. Sweats as a whole aren't presided over by any official hierarchy. During the sweat, participants speak as they are moved to about each other's struggles and stumbling blocks, spoken and unspoken. It's considered deeply transgressive to discuss what was said inside a sweat, outside the sweat. To take part in a sweat with another person is profoundly intimate. Galpon houses. Tea houses are sedate places that get a nice drink containing mild stimulants. Depending on the Galpon house, the service can be very formal, very casual. As the sun goes down, however, the atmosphere shifts, and all but a few Galpon houses offer a variety of mind-expanding additions to low-key daytime fare. Hell yes! Use of psychedelic substances has been seen as pivotal in Cahokian people's ability to adapt to a series of upheaval and dramatic shifts. Keeping one's thinking from becoming too rigid is respected, as long as it does not inhibit daily functioning. Of course, less respectable Yapan houses, like Patsis, serve mind-altering substances from sunrise to sunset, and are seen as gathering places for the lost and struggling. Medicine and health. Oh god, we're 64 pages into... I think I can get to 2 hours and I'm gonna have to stop. Free medical treatment from the city. Preventative medicine. There's also private medicine. Traditional and modern medicine are both equally respected and recognized. Patients are able to choose which one they would like. Yeah, I'm fucking dying. My throat's killing me. Modern science has led to create high-tech prosthetic and micro-solutions in many problems. However, many people are ambivalent about the idea of artificially modifying their bodies. A person who loses their arm in Cahokia is much more likely to adapt to having one arm than to get a cybernetic replacement. Really? Huh. Sex manifests in several ways. There is no judgment when it comes to sexual orientation, no stigma surrounding casual sex between enthusiastically consenting partners. Subcultures and other cultures might have varying views. For example, one village's culture maintains sexual attraction to all as a proper norm, and cutting yourself off entirely from any gender is unnatural. Hell yeah, many casual sex centers around pleasure without commitment. Partners need not commit to each other, only to consent to their time together. Likewise, no stigma exists for those individuals who do not choose to engage in sexual activity or feel no sexual or romantic desire or inclination. Much of the culture of people of Coyote and Crow has been greatly affected by the Owies. For generations, people had to carefully balance a population between too few to survive and too many to feed. Now, however, population is exploding, mortality has plummeted, including infants, and life expectancy is skyrocketing. No recent war, famine, or plagues, population growing so fast the government is somewhat alarmed. There's no current law against having any number of children in Cahokia. The city's debating regulation or taxation before things get out of hand. Average family has 3 children. Average gestational parent gives birth to 4 over their lifetime. Can we just take a fucking moment to applaud them here? The average gestational parent. Gestational fucking parent. See what they made birth giving gender neutral. Something that in English or other languages we would say motherhood. The average mother gives birth to 4 children over their lifetime. That's how commonly that would be expressed. But not just women are capable of gestating and giving birth. We fucking love some queer ass lore. I stan a game that talks about gestational parents and make reproduction gender neutral. Fuck yeah. Okay, having children is a very conscious choice. Birth control, regardless of gender, is at nearly 99% efficacy, and accidental pregnancy is very rare. Having sex for procreation is a very deliberate choice, maybe loving and romantic, a familial obligation, logical decision, or any number of other reasons. Ceremonial sex, while no longer as common as it once was, still exists within Cahokia society. Some people see it as a throwback or outdated practice. Some tribes or individuals, sex to consummate a marriage is expected. This is always a consensual act and is almost always brief, similar to the way the enemy might grudgingly shake their opponent's hand. Other times it's part of a ritual. While ceremonial sex should be pleasurable, its main focus is to appeal to certain spirits or certain customs. Most of the time it's a private affair. There are certain rituals where it's done in view of others, or a more orgiastic setting. As time has progressed and modernization becomes more commonplace, ritualistic versions of sex are becoming less common, while also becoming less of an issue for people who aren't participating. Maybe many people just shrug and say that's just what they do in that tribe. No one's getting hurt. Who cares? Gender. It's important to remember people in this world have the same ancient history we do. They have different customs. People of Coyote and Crow, gender isn't just a spectrum, it's also less important culturally. Gender roles are not strictly enforced, but also because traditionally, those that did not conform to standard binary labels of man or woman have become considered blessed or in possession of greater connection to the spiritual world. In addition to any existing terms or ideas about gender which you may utilize in your game, few easy umbrella categories exist in Coyote and Crow: women, men, and Tarhut, or third, an in-world term that covers everything in our world that's not cis men or women, including two-spirit, trans, binary, non-binary, more. It's important to note that It's important to note some over. What? Okay, whatever. All things about gender in Cahokia. Gender isn't assigned to infants or children. Children present however they like and may assume, combine, or change gender identities freely, not including acknowledging a gender for themselves at all. There's no real stigma around a person changing their gender identity at any point in their lives. God damn it, this... I love it. I love it. Native players, feel free to assign your character's two-spirit identity if you feel that role is appropriate to you. Non-native players, don't. Marriage and family. Okay, this does not spark joy. I will be skipping through this for now. For now? This is my voice. Oh, there it starts to go. Old age and death. Generations, life expectancy was in the low 40s. Life expectancy now is nearing 100 years on average. Oldest known person in Cahokia is 142. Damn! God damn! That's insane! Adult and middle-aged life has been stretched out. People who would have been feeble at 70 are still vibrant, healthy, and active. Death is a different story. Many people feel that when Great Spirit abandoned them during the Awis, it was death that took her place, killing more than 50% of the population of Makasing in the first 20 years. Damn. While there is still a variety of death rituals across the continent, cremation or composting became prevalent, especially in areas of high population density. There are also varying views on suicide and old age throughout the city and the region. Many believe it's personally not desirable, others still view it as relieving a burden from the tribe. As such, there are some who plan their death either at a specific age or past a certain milestone, like being unable to walk from a familiar point to home. Once they no longer can make that journey, some decide to end things for themselves, often with the help and blessings from their tribe and family. Abortion is legal, considered entirely the purview of the gestational parent. Paternity isn't important in society. Biological parenthood holds little weight. Divorce is a thing, but there aren't really parallel concepts of step-parents. Children do not lose parents to divorce, they simply have more than one, and all parents involved with their children fit specific relationship. All life is considered sacred for the citizens of Cahokia. Infants are not considered fully fledged humans until after the typical age they would stop breastfeeding. Recent changes in technology have radically altered infant mortality rates. Many people have had to face tough moral decisions they wouldn't have a few generations ago. For example, if an infant is likely to die shortly after birth, it's acceptable to experimentally give them the Adenandi-based drugs to keep them alive or cure them. Oh, if an infant's born deaf, is it moral to give them cybernetic implants at birth? None of these questions have clear answers yet. So just because there's fantastic technology doesn't mean that it's utopic, doesn't mean that it's solved. The technology is spreading quickly and without central legal control. Often if a patient doesn't like the answer a healer gives them, they can go to a different city-state or a different nation to get their treatment that suits their desire. There's ongoing debate about rights and motives of parents in relation to invasive permanent medical procedures before the child can meaningfully consent to them. Oh god. Before discussing how tribes are, real-world tribes and nations exist in Coyote and Crow. They're vital, vibrant parts of society play an important role. Not many are mentioned in this book. While the writers of this book come from a variety of tribes, we obviously would not speak for all tribes. Instead, our view is the real-world tribes in Coyote and Crow should be written in future volumes by writers from those tribes. Some are mentioned either directly or indirectly in this book, but usually in a larger picture such as Formation of Nations. Detailed histories of real-world tribes will not be detailed here. Damn. I mean, I get it, but also, like, I hope you do in later books. I hope you do in later books or editions, because I'm so curious. Yeah, this is just reiterating what they said earlier. There will be more paths in the character creation section, but for now, what's important to know is that in Cahokia there are 15 paths, all based on animals. Damn. Okay. I'm struggling. I just want to read all of this, but I can't fucking do it. Okay. Well, I think I've wet my whistle enough. I gotta stop talking. I'm gonna keep reading this on my own, but I gotta cut this. Yeah, Coyote and Crow. Absolutely highly recommend it. If nothing else, for just how ambitious it is in world building and trying to create a non-Euro, non-white centric TTRPG setting and rule set, and I'm so excited to dig into the rule set. Hey, you know, it doesn't have to be year 23. You can reach out to people from the Quechua Aymara community, try and find game designers or would-be game designers or authors or historians from that community and be like, hey, have you heard of Coyote and Crow? Like, what do you... I think it'd be really exciting if you wrote something for this. I'd really like that content. You can always be a squeaky wheel about it. Yeah. So buy this shit. Absolutely buy this. Funded in 45 minutes. Yeah. It's incredible. Oh, they got merch. Oh fuck, I shouldn't look at this. Wait, what merch do you have? Okay. Nothing I would buy. Thank God. Yep. Check it out. I may talk about this more later. I may not. I'm probably not going to stream much this week because sick, and I should let my voice heal, or my throat heal, and I have family visiting on Thursday through next Tuesday, so that's going to keep me occupied, and I'm hoping to not be dying by then. But all the same, thanks for hanging out. I'm super excited about this, and I think I'd really like to play this. I don't know if I feel comfortable running a game in it. I desperately want to see other people play it, though. So I'm probably going to be seeking that content out very soon. Until later, I'm going to say toodaloo. Take care. Bye-bye.